Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing the Barbie movie. If you are returning, welcome back and be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you are new, welcome aboard. Know that I am an internal family systems therapist, right? And so my reviews come through the lens of internal family systems and looking at and getting curious about what's happening in this Barbie movie. Who was expecting all this? Definitely not me. And at the same time, really great that this movie could display a lot of really what we experience in everyday life and be able to use it as a tool to help us look inside, grow a little bit more, and get a little curious. So let's get into it. My reviews are going to look at what happened in the movie in its entirety. So, spoiler alert, you've been warned. All right. So first we're going to talk about Barbie. Barbie had a mission, a very serious mission, to empower women, to make women feel like they could do anything, cross any barriers of gender, and be able to be whatever they were to the umpteenth power, right? And so we saw this effort. When the movie first started, you see this like very hyper representation of what a president is, of what a lawyer is, of what a police officer is, of even the main character, of what the stereotypical Barbie is, perfect and happy all the time, right? And it's really represented the proactive protectors that we have inside of us that are working really hard on the front line to make sure we stay in control or feel in control, right? And so these parts are working, and these Barbies were working so hard to empower women. However, they were not understanding and not aware that they were actually having the opposite effect in the real world. And because they were in this like hyper, right, very rigid, limiting, and plastic, of course, Barbie, right, plastic version of themselves, it was putting a lot of pressure on them. A lot of pressure on them and a lot of work to be this perfect representation of whatever type of Barbie they were supposed to be. So much so that later on in the movie, when the Barbies actually get a time to have rest because Ken is coming back, right, with some new information and a new attitude, that they relinquish. They are happy to relinquish all this pressure of being this very rigid, right, version of whatever they are supposed to be, that they allow and give the Kens their agency. They hand it over, right? Which really mirrors the polarization of what we feel internally. Oftentimes, when we are feeling one way, a part of me feels this way, a part of me feels that way, it's very much the extreme version, very opposite. Not usually coming from a centered place, right? So a part of me is saying like, oh, I need to do all this work, right? And then part of me wants to do nothing, okay? Right? We have these parts of us internally, and they're oftentimes battling it out. And so the Barbies, when they have a chance to have their moment and have their break, they take it. They take it and they relinquish control, not realizing what's happening. This part of them that has relinquished control is just happy to not have to work, to not have to be in this very limiting state of being all the time, feeling the pressure of always having to do this. So take stereotypical Barbie for an example. She's feeling the pressure to maintain this perfect representation of what Barbie is supposed to be. She said, when you think of Barbie in your head, you think of me, right? And so she is trying to maintain the perfect idea of what Barbie is. And she, at first, when she starts to experience things that are outside of the realm of what Barbie is supposed to be, she panics. She panics. She's like, why am I having thoughts about death? Why am I anxious? Why are my feet flat? Oh no, something's happening. Something's happening. and she panics and she wants to get back to what she knows, right? There's a fear. There's a fear if, oh my goodness, if we let these feelings, these thoughts, negative, right? There's this thought about negative emotions that's introduced into this movie when actually emotions are just are. They're not negative nor positive, they just are. Now they may be uncomfortable, but they're not negative. However, information that we get from the outside and maybe even sometimes from us internally makes us feel like they're negative. And so this thought about death or her thoughts about anxiety or having anxious thoughts and experiencing sadness, she's like, oh no, this is too much. I just want to be happy. I just want to go back to, right, this box that I'm in, right? No pun intended, right? This box that I'm in to be the perfect Barbie, because there's fear of what will happen if we allow these emotions, allow these imperfect things to happen. And that's very similar to our proactive protectors. They are always trying to maintain control because they have a fear of what will happen if they don't do this job. If we don't do this job to protect us, what's going to happen? If I don't push these feelings down, what will happen? I'll get stuck. They'll take over. I'm not able to manage them on my own. I don't know what it feels like. It hurts. It's too much. I won't. And that's oftentimes what our proactive protectors are doing. Very much so, like the stereotypical Barbie character that we see in the movie. Now, once Barbie starts to notice the calm that comes with just being instead of the pressure of having to do something in order to prevent, right? Or in order to protect. She's just being and allowing herself to explore and be. There's a calm that comes with that for her. And she's leaning into it. She's leaning into the complex emotions that she's experiencing. Even so much so that she decides to do this really brave thing by stepping onto the real world. The real world, where she's going to experience all these complex, uncomfortable emotions. She's going to have to deal with loss and her own passing, her own mortality. However, for her, it's a risk worth taking because the relief in just being and living and exploring and not being in the box of having to be, right, what everyone wants her to be. And so did the other Barbies. The other Barbies, they realized they didn't have to be these hyper representations, right, of the perfect president Barbie, right, or the lawyer Barbie, the doctor Barbie, right? They didn't have to be these hyper rigid parts of themselves, but they can allow themselves to just be without having all those pressures and that fear of what would happen if they weren't perfect, if they didn't do what everyone else was expecting them to do, right? It's the weight of those expectations that makes that pressure so much. It's the weight of what will happen if, right? There's a lot of fear there. And so that's what's driving. That's what's driving the adrenaline that's happening internally for us when it comes to our need to survive and our need to thrive. There's a feeling of being unsafe, of what will happen, right? If we are not this perfect version of whatever people are expecting us to be. And the character Gloria, she did a wonderful job with talking about all those pressures of what womanhood is and how people want you to be nice but not too nice because you'll be a pushover, right? You want you to be loud but not too loud, because then people will see you as this. But if you're too quiet, then people will just, right? And so all these pressures to be all these things, and sometimes opposing things and not knowing how to be just our centered self, right? And whatever feels natural and feels like truly our core and authentic to who we really are. Now let's talk about these Kens. Now they were a great source of comedic relief throughout the movie. However, I want us to really humanize. I know I'm saying humanize Barbies, right? Humanize dolls. Well, I'm really doing that and asking you to lean into that because we're making some parallels regarding what's happening, right? What's happening in this movie and what they're really showing, right? So the Kens are living in a world. It's not made for them. They're living in Barbie land, right? And they are doing everything they possibly can, no matter how it makes them look, right? They don't care about that. They only want to be seen. They only want to be acknowledged. They are living for Barbie to see them. All they want is to be seen and acknowledged. And that's all the parts of us want, really, is to be seen, heard, witnessed. We have these parts that are always looking, right? And needing that attention. And that attention is often minimized or even stigmatized at times because people say that, oh, that person's doing it for attention. I'll tell you this. If you have parts of you that have not been attended to, that have gone long times being deprived of feeling seen and heard, you will do some pretty desperate things to have that need met. And we see this in this movie so much. Barbie didn't even know where the Kens live. She was like, where do they live? And I still want to know, like, where do they live? Because they need a place to rest too, right? If every night is girls' night, they need a place to rest too. However, it wasn't even as a watcher on my radar to be like, oh, where's the Ken's house? They don't have a house in Barbie land, right? They don't have a place to call home, right? And so their only way to get a home is by catching the glance, catching the attention of Barbie, right? And so once Ken starts to see another world where he is introduced to patriarchy. Oh yeah, he's taking it in. He's like, this looks like something I've been needing, something I've been wanting, to be seen, to feel in control, right? And what happens is sometimes when we have not had what we needed, we haven't had our needs met, we haven't felt seen, we haven't been acknowledged, we haven't felt heard, that once there's a moment or opportunity for it to happen, then sometimes there's a part of us that will orchestrate it so that we will never have to feel what it feels like to not be acknowledged, to be invisible, to be ignored, to be dismissed and rejected, right? That's what Ken's existence was before he was introduced to a world where men were exalted, right? And men were seen. And so he takes this back. He takes the gospel of patriarchy back to the other Kens, and they change. They make it so. They make it so that they don't have to be ignored anymore. They don't ever have to feel that pain anymore. Even though they're still wanting that connection from Barbie, right? They're still wanting to be liked, right? They're still wanting that connection. But the driving force is that they want to feel seen. They want to make sure that the world revolves around their sense of importance, of being important, feeling like they matter, right? And so when the Barbies are trying to take back Barbie land, and the Kens are starting to have their insecurities activated, right? Activated by what the Barbies are doing, instead of getting curious about their insecurities, instead of attending to themselves, they fight each other. They turn on each other. They turn on each other. And wouldn't it be interesting if, when something, because it happens, it's not even an if, when something in life activates our insecurities, our past questions about our importance, if we matter, if we're lovable, if we were to get curious about that and really attend to it within ourselves versus trying to fight for it in the external world or trying to pull for it for someone to do it outside of us instead of having ourself be present with the parts of us that are having these big questions about our importance, our value, our worth. And so once Barbie and Ken are able to have this conversation of reconciliation, he's able to say, you ignored me every night. Every night was girls' night. And I made for you. Like I was made. My whole purpose was made to be connected to you. His whole identity was made for her, right? So if he's not attached to Barbie, then there's almost like an identity crisis. Like what happens then? Who is Ken if he does not have her? If he does not have Barbie, right? And so they have this moment of clarity. And Barbie apologizes. Barbie apologizes for not seeing and acknowledging Ken's feelings and taking him for granted, right? And it was great. It was great to see a representation of self-exploration for both Ken and Barbie outside of relationships. Because we know, right? What's the indirect message that we get from that is that relationships are what define our value. And if that belief is there, that can make things a little dangerous, right? If my value is determined on whether I'm in a relationship or not, I might do some things that I wouldn't normally do, or do some things that don't completely sit right with me in order to fight for my value, to fight for my importance, and not truly honor myself. And so it's great to see that displayed on a movie on a big screen. So now let's look at the unique connection between Barbie and Gloria, right? And so we learn that Gloria loved Barbies, right? Loved Barbie, and specifically stereotypical Barbie, and idolized, right? Idolized what she represented. And so a part of her took that in and said, ooh, I want to do that. I want to be perfect. I want to be just like Barbie. And we do have younger parts of us that take on really concrete ideas and still play it out in our adult lives, right? She has, as a child, this picture of Barbie being perfect and said, ooh, I want to be that. I want to be perfect. And seeing in her adult life, still feeling that pressure to be perfect like her younger self, was wanting to be just like Barbie. However, she also had some other parts, right? That maybe this one that wanted her to be perfect was trying to mask and keep quiet. She had parts of her that had thoughts about death and intrusive thoughts and anxiety, right? And those parts, if we suppress, right, if we have other parts of us that are trying to maintain an image, right, trying to maintain safety too, right? So because it is, right, safe to be and do what is socially accepted, and you know, it's not socially acceptable to talk about death and thoughts about death on a regular basis. Like, hey, how are you? Well, I today I was just thinking about like what happens once we close our eyes for the last time. You know, we just say, how are you doing? Fine. That's what comes up in our everyday conversation. And so it is safer. It is safer, right? Because we don't want to do something that's not going to be socially appropriate, because that will be in risk of being rejected. And to quiet those parts of us that have those big questions or really complex thoughts or uncomfortable thoughts, or don't want to make people awkward, I don't want to be weird, I don't want people to feel like I'm strange, so I will keep them down. Well, after a while, you keep suppressing those parts, they start to pop up, right? They start to pop up in many different ways. And it could be where you're having like a ruminating thoughts, right? Of these thoughts that are trying to come up and get your attention and really say, hey, I have some concerns. Can you attend to me? Can you spend some time with me? They will keep you up at night, right? You won't be able to sleep because you're having these thoughts and they're trying to get your attention. And we see this with Gloria. Gloria has these thoughts, and that so much so that she's drawing these out, right? She's drawing out these different types of Barbies. Like, ooh, what? I wonder what her younger self is like. Okay, perfect. I know what perfect Barbie looks like, but I'm trying to see, maybe there could be some different types of Barbies, right? There's a bargaining that's happening internally for her, that she's trying to find different types of Barbies that can represent the parts of her that she's trying to accept, right? Because she's tired of all the pressure. She's tired of all the pressure of being perfect. And that is what draws stereotypical Barbie to her. That's what's like almost the calling, right? She's hearing the calling and going to her. And we learn what is really under. When we start to get to know Gloria, we learn what's underneath the protection. The protection of her wanting and needing to be perfect, of these thoughts of death or intrusive thoughts and anxiety. There's a part of her that is grieving her relationship with her daughter, that's feeling rejected, that's carrying sadness. It's a very fragile part of her, but we see it, right? We see it, and Barbie sees it. She saw the vision, right, of what their relationship used to be and what it is now, right? And so Barbie gets the clue of, aha, I know why I'm here. I know my mission. I know what I'm supposed to do. Which brings me to the connection between Sasha, Barbie, and Gloria. Yes, the mother and daughter and Barbie, because Barbie is definitely a part of this equation too. Because Barbie thinks she's actually there for Sasha, right? However, when she meets Sasha, it makes perfect sense why Sasha does not greet Barbie with warm feels, right? We see Sasha's outer exterior. There's protection there for her as well. She has this teenage angst. She has experienced her mother's pressure for perfection that she has internally for herself, but also whether she was knowingly doing it or unconsciously doing it, she was also putting that same level of and pressure of perfection on her daughter. And Sasha said, ugh, I don't want that. She rejects that and puts on this rebel energy. I don't need that. I find my own way. I'll do what I want to do, right? So she takes that on, and then she sees Barbie for the first time, a physical representation of what her mom's perfection represents and embodies. And she's like, you are not it. And I could never and ever want to be connected to you. Automatically activated, right, by the perfection, right, the perfect image. So when Sasha sees that her mother has other parts. Like, she gets to see, like, oh, you have a part of you that's like has thoughts about death. You get anxious. Basically, oh, you're human, right? You are admitting that you have these things. It draws Sasha in. It disarms her. It disarms that angst or that rebel that was up before and was carrying that angst that would, right, give her the cold shoulder when they sat in the same car. She starts to move to connect with her mother and even try to encourage her mother, saying, hey, I didn't know that you had all these weird parts of you, these different parts of you. I really want you to be free to be yourself. You don't have to be perfect all the time. You don't have to do that. Authenticity always moves to connect. When we have pressure to be a certain thing, that puts distance automatically. It puts distance between us and other people we're trying to connect to, and can cause harm that can cause the connection to rupture. And that's what we witnessed in the movie. And Barbie helped. Barbie helped to humanize Gloria, and helped to humanize Gloria, helped her to have this wonderful moment, right? Of all these pressures that we have to be this perfect box, this perfect image, right? And help her daughter to see her humanity, her vulnerability, which drew them closer to each other. Oftentimes, parents feel the pressure to be the perfect parent, or to be, right, whatever archetype of a parent is that they received or that they saw, maybe it was on TV, whatever they felt, right? They felt they needed or feel like their child, right, needs from them. They put that pressure on themselves to be. And what happens is when their child shows up as a human, it can activate and trigger that parent, that trigger that part of them that's fighting to be and needing to be a certain way. And that's where sometimes a lot of damage in the parent-child relationship can occur, because it's really hard. It's really hard for the parent to give space for their child to be human, because of what they fear will happen. They have fears, right? If I'm not perfect, if I don't make myself, right, be confident and step out there and speak, even though I have these anxious parts that are really afraid of just being judged and criticized by other people. If I don't do this, then what will happen? What will happen? What will happen to me? And the parent in turn has that same worry about what will happen to their child, right? And that's what causes a lot of clash and a lot of friction and a lot of hurt and a lot of disconnect in the parent-child relationship, right? Now I'm speaking just in the realm of what we saw in the Barbie movie. We know that the parent-child relationship, there's so many dynamics, there's so many different cultural norms and influences that can even add and create even more complexities to the parent-child relationship. I'm speaking to what we saw between Gloria and Sasha. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting how our lives experiences, things that we don't expect to happen at young ages, still impact us when we are much, much older and we are showing up in our adulthood. Now, if you're watching this video and you're now even more curious about, like, what is internal family systems? I have a playlist on my channel that's titled Internal Family Systems. Feel free to peruse it. And if you have questions, I will definitely respond to those. And if you are still with us, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, be cool, be calm, be centered. Peace.